Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Good evening, Dan. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Good to be back.
All right, good to be back. After all the golf and tennis, we're finally back, and the World Series is going to start tomorrow between two of the most storied franchises in the history of the sport, the New York Yankees and the Dodgers from LA. I think this is exactly what the Major League wanted. This is what every fan wanted. I think this is going to get monster ratings, and I know you're going to the game. So wanted to hear your initial thoughts on how both the teams made it to the big stage here, and then we can get down to both the predictions for each of the games, and then also who would be the key players for the teams, whether the hitting or batting, and then the pitching, the bullpen, which kind of takes or where each of the teams have like an advantage in each of those areas. So, and even the coach, obviously. So I'll give you the floor and set the stage for for the listeners here. Now, this is
Okay.
our first Major League Baseball podcast. I can't believe I've never done one.
Yes. Yeah, I felt like it was appropriate. About time we did a podcast for baseball, being that my arguably my favorite team in all of sports is the Dodgers, the team I grew up following the most. You know, I'd wake up in the mornings during this summer and the school year and flip open the sports section and look at the box score and look at all the numbers of the players back then and what they did the night before. So the Dodgers were always kind of my team closest to my heart that I followed the most over the years, and they've kind of remained that way. But yeah, so just going back to so how these teams get there. Well, I can talk a little bit about the Dodgers. I'm not as versed with the Yankees. My wife could probably help with that, but she's probably upstairs packing. um, so basically, yeah, the Dodgers had quite the off season last year, where they with the signing of Ohtani and Yamamoto, the pitcher, and they also traded for the all-star pitcher Glass now they got him from the Rays. So they had quite
And
the
they
big
picked
off.
up Jack Flaherty too.
Flaherty at the trade deadline, Flaherty and a few other key players at the trade deadline. But those were the three major acquisitions before the year, with Ohtani, Yamamoto, with billions of dollars in payroll committed to them over the life of their contract. And then obviously then they have Betts locked up. Mookie Betts is locked up to a long-term contract. Freddie Freeman. So they're a star-studded roster who was expected, based on just on paper, they were going to run away with the World Series and get there easily, was everyone's prediction. But things don't always work out that way, as far as just because you have that team on paper, things can change a lot during the year. And they had lots of injuries. I mean, Ohtani was solid all year, obviously, with his season, 50 plus home runs and 50 stolen bases, and Betts and Freeman had respectable years, but their pitching really was just blown to shreds. Glass now was hurt for a good part of the year. Yamamoto was hurt for a good part of the year. And we didn't even mention Kershaw. The Hall of Fame. He'll be in the Hall of Fame first ballot. And he came back for this year hoping he could contribute to this team. He had offers to go maybe back to his hometown and be part of the Rangers or the Astros. But he decided he wanted to stick with the Dodgers. That's the only team he's ever played for. And disappointingly, he didn't start his year until about July, and it got cut short when he had some injuries again in September. So his season was very abbreviated this year, unfortunately. So we were basically left with a real empty cupboard, if you will, for as far as pitching goes as we approach the playoffs. So there were a lot of question marks with just having, the Flaherty was their number one, who they picked up at the deadline. And then after that, they had Yamamoto, who was, injured the last month, as well as Walker Buehler, who's, a Cy Young caliber pitcher as of a couple of years ago, but he's coming back this year from Tommy John. So a lot of question marks. And then, as we approached the playoffs, things were the Padres were the hot team, the Mets were the hot team going into the playoffs. Most of the critics were they were still probably picking the Dodgers, but it was very iffy, whether the Padres might beat them in the Mets. And those were two great series with the Padres obviously up 2-1 and in the best of five. And the Dodgers really had to just kind of band together and really rally together. And that's what they did. They had a great bullpen pitching game in game 4, came through, shut out the Padres. And then Yamamoto came through huge in the 5th game. Yeah, he had 5 scoreless innings, and Dodgers finished with 2 straight shutouts in games 4 and 5 to propel themselves to a victory. And the guys who came through on this Dodger team were some of the guys who've been there in the past, kind of the unsung heroes, the kind of the platoon players, if you will, like guys like Kike Hernandez and Max Muncy, guys that, when it comes to October, these guys, their bats get hot, they get on base, and they, really make the at-bats, make the pitchers have tough at-bats against them. They find a way to get on base and come through in the clutch. And, so it wasn't necessarily the likes of Ohtani and Betts and Freeman that were propelling the Dodgers through this postseason. It's these unsung heroes. They picked up a guy from St. Louis midseason or at the trade deadline, Tommy Edman, who was key. He was the MVP of the LCS against the Mets. He had a huge, huge series, tons of RBIs. And great defense at shortstop and center field. He just kind of played wherever he was needed. So, this Dodger team this is probably the most impressive postseason they've had. That's what they've all been saying. They have so much fun playing together. A lot of chemistry there as well right now. And just as far as the amount of injuries, it's really quite amazing how they've kind of just got through. And they set a record against the Mets, I think, with most runs scored in that series as well. Most runs in an LCS series ever by the Dodgers. So a lot of impressive offensive production. And so that kind of sums up the Dodgers season. The Yankees, I don't know. I haven't followed them as closely. You're a Red Sox fan, obviously, so you probably haven't been watching them too much. You could maybe, if you want to make comment on them a little bit, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can make a comment on that. Interestingly, you were talking about the Red Sox, and I think the Netflix just dropped a series called The Comeback, which for me, I think living in the past has been against the Yankees, especially after they bounced us off the 2003 ALCS, which interestingly, not many people do realize that the Yankees went on to lose to the Florida Marlins in that series in 2003 World Series. They didn't win the World Series. And then 2004, they were up 3-0 against the Red Sox, and the Yankees lost 4-3, and the Red Sox go on to break the curse of the Bambino. But coming to the Yankees, they have been very impressive. I mean, against the Royals, I think they won 3-1 against the Royals, 4-1 against the Guardians. So they're clearly the team that's clicking on all cylinders. I mean, if you just look at the Yankee lineup, just crazy lineup with Soto and Judge and Stanton. It's just a murderer's row, like you would believe. And then, pitching led by Garrett Cole. I mean, definitely the Yankees are right now the team to beat. I mean, if you ask me, we'll get to the predictions eventually, but right now, if you ask me, they look better on paper. I mean, I know the first game 1 is tomorrow, I think. And I think we'll be in the plane. Unfortunately,
no, it's Friday. Friday is the first game.
Friday is the first game. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yes, yeah. Friday and Saturday night. First
so we'll be able to watch it. Yes, we'll be able to watch it, like you said. Yeah. All right. So I think it's going to be an interesting series. So let's get down to when I look at both the teams right now. You got Ohtani, who's actually come late, especially the NLCS. He really came up, and the earlier series against the Padres, and I don't think he was as good as he was in the series against the Mets. I mean, what was he batting like?
Well, he had some crazy. The crazy stat on him was, it's interesting. His stat he bats leadoff, and in the postseason when he came up with no one on base, so to start the game, and then if he was up in an inning with no one on base, he had a sub 100 batting average, maybe 050, really pathetic. with runners on base, though, his average was like 400 or 500. It was ridiculous with home runs, RBIs. So when the pitchers were forced to pitch him a little tighter, he came through. But with no one on base, when the pitchers could really go after him and throw whatever they wanted and try to get him to chase stuff, he was not that effective, unfortunately, to start especially against the Padres. They had a bunch of good lefty pitchers who really shut him down, made him look kind of like a novice up there, to be honest. But
Yeah.
but he came through with runners on base, that's for sure, against both the Padres and Mets.
Yeah, and before we get to the actual prediction, I mean, this is like we talked about. It's a storied rivalry, which started in 1941, and the last one was in 1981, if I believe that was right. Um, and I think obviously everybody knows the Yankees have won close to 27 World Series, and then I think the Dodgers have won. What was that?
They've won 7 times.
Seven times. Okay, yeah. So your recollection on the history between these two franchises before we get down to the actual prediction.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, too young to have really witnessed the last storied matchups between these two teams, going back to they played in 77 and 78 and 81, as far as when the Dodgers were out in LA. I think maybe in the 60s also they might have once played. Having been born in 75 myself, I was 2 and 3 years old when they played in 77 and 78. Those were both won by the Yankees, and then the Dodgers won in 81. A lot of historic games during those series. There was the famous game when Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs in one of those games. I'm learning today, too, from listening to the radio about the series. There was a very controversial play, I think in the 81, where Reggie Jackson bumped into a Dodger fielder I think it was the second baseman at the time, might have been Davey Lopes. And in this day and age, with replay, that would have been caused batter interference, and that was a key point in that game that kind of turned the game around, kept the inning alive, and the Yankees rallied and came back and won 4-2 in that series. Apparently, if there was instant replay, they would have lost that game, and maybe history is different, But anyways, yeah, I mean, this series goes back to Brooklyn and the Bronx, so we hear the stories from my grandparents and relatives who grew up back in Brooklyn, and emigrated to New York, and the kids grew up in the streets of Brooklyn and what do you call it, the Bronx, playing stickball and all that stuff with the likes of Duke Snider and Mickey Mantle, and obviously Babe Ruth going way back, and guys like Gil Hodges, Sandy Koufax, all those kind of players. So the history is just amazing. All the all the players, they're in different pops, rock songs going back to the 60s. You hear references to these players. So these are the two franchises that really, paved the way for Major League Baseball, for the history of baseball. And then, obviously with the Dodgers leaving Brooklyn and moving to LA, their fan base kind of shifted. Some fans went with them from Brooklyn to LA and still follow them. Some were very angry that they left and became Met fans. Ultimately, and then LA obviously developed its own huge fan base, which arguably is the strongest fan base up there with the Yankees in the major leagues today. They set attendance records year after year out there at Dodger Stadium. So I mean, obviously the rivalry last time they played, as we said, was 1981. Once interleague play began, about 15, 20 years ago, we got to see a little bit of interleague play with those games, with those two teams, but nothing. The dream has always been for them to reach a postseason. And I heard the stat today that there's been, I think, 12 times since the last time they played, 12 times when both teams were in the playoffs together, but neither of those 12 times have they obviously advanced to the World Series. So they've both made the playoffs on the same year plenty of times, but it's never really panned out where they've both reached the penultimate series. And as you mentioned, the Yankees have 27 titles, Dodgers 7, and this is the first meeting in 43 years. So I know you sent me a Twitter or whatever, some kind of stat earlier about the prices of there's no I think the lowest value of any ticket on the secondary market is still well over $1,000 right now, even at Dodger Stadium, where tickets are usually less than in New York, but still well over $1,000 for the least expensive ticket. So it's like the Super Bowl right now, the way the demand is.
Yeah, the other thing I would like to this one, because obviously, all the players that you named. I mean, I learned about all these players after moving to the United States. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the sport, and I've followed the sport, and I became a Red Sox fan, and lived through the pain of the of Red Sox failing to win the World Series, and finally they win multiple World Series, four, since I actually started following the team. But going back to the Yankees, interestingly, the last time the Yankees actually won the World Series was in 2009, when they beat the Philadelphia Phillies, and then I know the Dodgers won during the COVID pandemic. That was a 60-game shortened season. They won. They beat the Rays, which I think the one previous to that was in 1988, I
88.
believe.
Yeah.
88.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a long time coming for the Yankees, and every time this used to be, and as I was watching the comeback, the series, it was they were talking about how the Red Sox and the Yankees would match dollar for dollar going after the players, and it was the same thing for the Dodgers. I mean, I know the Red Sox, and it still pains me that traded Mookie Betts to the Dodgers, because he was one of my favorite Red Sox players. But end of the day, I get to see him play in the World Series for another team, against my hated rival. So I guess you know where I'm rooting. My rooting interest lies. May not really, uh, you know, uh, be of a good friend to a lot of the Yankee friends of mine, but I'm going to be rooting for the Dodgers there. But and then um, we'll get to some very good trivia at the end. I have some good trivia for you as well. But let's get down to your prediction in terms of um, which will take. Like, would it be the Yankee hitting, the Yankee pitching, the Red Sox, the Dodger hitting, the Dodger bullpen? Because I know the Dodger bullpen has been really solid in the NLCS. So your thoughts on where the advantage is for each of those teams?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I think the edge. I mean, as far as just breaking down the two offenses, I think it breaks down pretty even. You got the two. You got really three big stars on each team, as you kind of alluded to with Murderers Row on the Yankees with Soto, Stanton,
Judge.
uh, and Judge. And then you have on the Dodgers, you got the top three: Otani, Betts, and then Freddie Freeman. Who Freeman's been he's been a little bit he's been compromised in the last series by a bad ankle sprain that he had that back in the last week of the regular season, which he said if it was a regular season he would take 4 weeks to be on the DL to get back from this, but he's been really trying to get back. So you got to kind of have the 3-star players on each team. Like I said, we'll see if Freeman is healthy. But as we know from watching plenty of postseasons past now, just the stars don't always come through in the postseason. So it's kind of the unsung heroes, the role players, like we alluded to, that the Max Muncy's, the Kiki Hernandez's, the Tommy Edmonds of the Dodgers, and then for the Yankees, I don't know whether Verdugo or Gleyber Torres or some of the guys who aren't the stars.
Some of the
So,
Red Sox players, all these guys were ex-Red Sox players. With Kiki Hernandez,
yeah, I love Kiki Hernandez. He's such a solid role player. He just does whatever he's asked. He can play third base,
Yep.
center, short. You plug him in anywhere. He goes out there. He plays hard-nosed baseball, and he gets the key home run half the time. He's had a bunch of those in this postseason already, key hits. So, it might very well come down to those, some role player. And, Dodgers have solid role players, as do the Yankees. So we just don't know what to expect when it comes to the offense, because as we've seen, Aaron Judge is like, 0 for October. It feels like, he hasn't really come through yet. And he had that one big home run against Cleveland, the huge one to tie up that game,
Right.
which they ultimately lost, but he tied it, so he had a big home run there. But otherwise, Stanton's finally come out of his shell. He's had a huge postseason so far. So he's finally.
Soto has come out well too.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, Otani, obviously, we're expecting big things from him. He's underperformed, if I had to evaluate his performance so far in the postseason. Betts has done all right. But so offense, you just don't know what to expect. And then if you look at the defensively, Dodgers have been solid. I don't think they've committed one error, maybe one in the whole postseason. I've watched, most of their games, and defense has been spectacular. The Yankees, I've heard, have been a little shaky, and they've had some base running blunders from what I've heard too from a couple of friends of mine. So they need to clean that up. You can't really make those kind of errors in the postseason, on the base pass and fielding, and still go on to win a World Series. It makes it tougher to do that. And then shifting towards the pitching, I got to give the edge probably here to the Yankees, at least with the starters. The Yankees have 4 solid starters, anchored by
Oh,
led by Garrett Cole, as you said, a UCLA guy. So I got to put the plug in for him. And then they got, I think, Rodon and not Cortez. I think Cortez is not going to start. Rodon and I forget who their third and fourth starters are, to be quite honest. But they have 4 solid starters at least. Dodgers are a little shaky with Yamamoto and Buehler and Flaherty, they've had good and bad starts so far in the postseason. With Yamamoto and Buehler, though, the problem is they're only really comfortable letting them go about 5 innings. They haven't gone beyond 5, those guys. So you got to figure, even in those starts, they're going to be tapping that bullpen. It's a strong bullpen the Dodgers have, as you mentioned. A lot of big arms that they can go to there. But if you have to go to them in the 5th inning and get a lot of innings out of them, that makes it harder to do what they want to do with pitching 1, maybe 2 bullpen games, as the Dodgers have been doing all postseason. So I think big edge pitching wise to the Yankees, but I'm hopeful that the Dodgers bats will explode like they did against the Mets, where they said, like I said, a single postseason record of most runs scored in a postseason series. So that's kind of how I look at things. Managing wise, well, got to give the edge to, I think, another UCLA guy, Roberts, Doc Roberts over
ex-Red
there.
Sox. Ex-Red Sox that started the base steal against the Yankees in Game 4 against Juan
Right.
Rivera. So I remember
Yes.
it as crystal clear as yesterday.
So you're a
So
big fan of Roberts as well. So I got to
of
give the
course,
edge to Roberts. And actually, of note, also, not I hate to bring into this UCLA USC, but Aaron Boone is a USC graduate. So we got UCLA USC rivalry going on here, besides LA New York, obviously.
I,
So yeah,
yes, and Aaron Boone, I think, broke my heart in 2003. But Dave Roberts, won it for the Red Sox, with the space deal in 2004. I think so. It's got so many of the Red
yeah,
Sox connections with Mookie
that's right.
Betts, and you got Kiki Hernandez, and I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. But I do think, like, when I look at the lineup, Yankees definitely. I mean, they pretty much breeze through both the ALCS and the division round very easily. Their hitting is there. They got, like you said, like you got Cole, you got Clark Schmidt. I think another pitcher.
That's,
So they do have all the pitchers, and that's why this is going to be so difficult to predict. And I mean, again, I know where I'm going. Um, I think it's going to be 7. And I think it's going to go back and forth, and that's exactly what we want. Maybe not what you want, because I think I know 7 game series, usually it's not great for either team because it could come down to this one game. But I feel like definitely the Yankees have like a lot of advantage when you look at the batting. I definitely give the edge to the Yankees. Just their lineup is just so solid. I mean, there's no break, with Soto, Judge, and Stanton. Then you got like other guys coming through. But then, I mean, the Dodgers have their own. Then you got Anthony Volpe too. I think, right? I mean, I
all
think
right.
it was a great picture of him, which I saw, that he attended the Yankees 2009 World Series parade as a young fan, and now he's got
Hmm.
a 310 average in the postseason. It's a great picture that one of my friends sent me. So, a lot of story, a lot of history. Um, Obviously, the Dodgers. You have Otani, you got Mookie Betts, you got Muncy, you got Freeman, there's a lot of good players on each side. So, where do you think this is going in terms of your prediction right now?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this today. Um, all postseason I've been kind of picking against my Dodgers. Just 'cause I'm an eternal pessimist, I guess. I've been tortured by too many of the ghosts of the past, where they've just, especially the last 3 years, where they've gone down in the early rounds to the Diamondbacks and the Padres and the Braves, and then where their offense has just got, they hit 100 in the postseason. So I've been very cynical and pessimistic. I picked against them all postseason. They keep they keep proving me wrong. I should probably pick against them because they keep winning, but I got to go with them. I got to go with my heart, here. So I'm saying Dodgers in 7. I think it's going to play out where they split the first 2 games in LA. Then the Dodgers lose 2 of 3 in New York. They'll be down 3-2 going back to LA. And then they're going to, I think, sweep the last 2 games back in LA to win 4-3 in 7. And I yeah, so I agree 6 or 7. I think 7 and Dodgers 4-3. Yeah.
4-3. Okay. Yeah. I mean, everywhere I've been reading, everywhere I've been listening, it says like Yankees in 6 or 7. And as it breaks my heart to pick for the Yankees, obviously that means that they get one more, and then more than the Red Sox. And interestingly, the Red Sox have actually won more World Series since 2009, since the Yankees last won it. Right? They won it in 13. They won it in 18. They beat the Dodgers. I remember that.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I'm actually going to go. I think they've just been too good. Just been watching them, just too good. I'm going to pick, Yankees in 6. I think.
Hmm.
So, and I'm hoping the reverse, the reverse would work.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Vegas has got Dodgers as the favorite. I think all the different sport books and all your betting apps, I'm pretty sure the Dodgers are slight favorite, small favorite, and all the as far as the odds go. But yeah, I haven't really looked to see what all the analysts and experts, so to speak, are picking just yet. They've all been saying 6 or 7 games though, and I think everyone's agreed there. So that probably means it'll be a sweep based on what the critics are saying.
Yeah.
How little they know, but we'll see.
So here are some we always like to do. Like you said, right? We like to do a trivia for our good friend Pete Sutmeyer. But quick thing I want to. Before we get to the trivia, you got who would be the breakout player in your mind in the series?
Good question. It's a good question. Yeah, well, Tommy Edman already did it in the last series. He's the kind of like the players like him are the kind who emerge. Maybe it's going to be a Max Muncy. You mentioned his name a bunch, but I could see him having a huge series. I could see him being really dialed in to every at bat. And I think during the Mets series, he reached base 12 straight times at one point. Not all hits, but he walks. He's a tough at bat for a pitcher too. He doesn't swing at anything out of the zone. He's got a great eye. So I think Muncy might be key to the Dodgers' chances here. Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly, I was actually going to pick between Judge and Otani, and I didn't realize this, that this is the first time in 12 years that you probably see the likely AL and NL MVP winners meet in the Classic.
Right.
So I think the last time it happened was when the San Francisco Giants, Buster Posey and Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers. I think that was 12 years ago. I didn't even realize that.
Didn't know that.
So I have one trivia for you. Who's got the most World Series rings as Yankee?
Which player you're saying?
Which player? Yes.
Which player? God, nobody in the
as a player.
Yeah, as a player. I mean, you think Ruth, Mantle, Gehrig, Maris. I'm going to go with Mickey Mantle. I don't know. It's too obvious, but yeah.
It is too obvious, but there is okay, how about this? He was a catcher.
Is a cat? Oh, Yogi Berra.
There you go.
Yeah, Yogi Berra. I even think about Yogi. Yeah,
and then I'll give you another one because we did a Yankee trivia. We'll do a Dodger trivia. 3 players who are tied for the most World Series rings with the Dodgers. I'll give you one name, Sandy Koufax.
Okay, Koufax.
And then
I'm going to go Gil Hodges.
No.
Duke Schneider.
No.
Oh, man, this is tough. Jackie Robinson.
No. I gave you the easy one. I gave you Sandy Koufax.
Sandy Koufax. Don Drysdale. How about Don Drysdale?
No. Johnny Podres.
Johnny Padres. Wow.
And then Jim Gilliam.
Oh my God, I guess I'm not a true fan. I'm a fan of the modern day.
Like I said, I just saw the trivia and I thought,
yeah,
I would just this was a trivia to but
wow.
yeah, this was yeah. I didn't. I would have not guessed either of
That's a
them.
mad dog. That's a mad dog trivia question for Super Bowl weekend.
I think yes. I think I'm now getting to the mad dog territory right now with these questions right now. Usually you get my usually you get my trivia. So even I didn't know. So, but anyway,
One more thing too before we get out of here. I think we got to pay tribute to unfortunately the passing today. You probably heard in the news
yes,
of
I did.
the great Dodger lefty Mexican American or Mexican Fernando Valenzuela,
Yep.
who kind of became of note, and he started playing in 1980. Then in 1981, he got off to just an amazing start. I think he had like a 8-0 or 9-0 record to start that season, a 0.5 ERA, and he was just the talk of baseball for that first year out in LA. They dubbed it Fernando Mania, where basically everything just stopped when he pitched. And there's a couple. He made the All-Star team his first year. He won the Cy Young and Rookie of the Year in his first season, and he won the World Series in '81, and he was on the '88 World Series team as well. So,
Yep.
I think we have to pay respects to him.
34 forever. I didn't. They said that number 34. That's
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think they did put they didn't mention that, as a 20-year-old rookie sensation with like a .5 ERA. I saw some of the things on in the on Twitter today, but uh,
Yeah.
young age, I think, right? I think he died
He
young.
was at the age of 63. He was quiet about his illness. I think it was liver cancer, I read, but he apparently was fighting it for the last year. And he was the Dodgers' Spanish radio announcer. Him and Jaime Herrin, I think, were the two Dodgers Spanish announcers over the last 20 years, since 2003. He had a little falling out with the team, I read, in 1990 when they released him, and he played another 5 or 6 years with a handful of other teams. He didn't want to come back to the Dodger organization. Initially, he was a little upset how things ended, but then they kind of patched things up. He came back in 2003, and he was the radio announcer for the last 20 years. So, yeah, and I do vividly remember one memory of his was he had a no-hitter. I think it was 1990. I remember listening to it on my little box radio back in the
Yep.
day. Because at this game, I don't think it was on TV for some reason, and Vin Scully was the announcer. And when he finished the no-hitter, it was a double play I watched it on YouTube today again, double play to complete the game in the no-hitter. Vin Scully's famous call was, "If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky." So
Oh,
you have to listen to it on YouTube. It's classic Vin Scully
I
voice.
will listen to it. Yeah.
An amazing call. I'll send it to you the link later, but it's fantastic. But
Cool.
yeah, so quick shout out to Fernando. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's good. And, rest in peace. And then looks like even Dave Roberts, I think, I think made a comment about that too. But this is great. Like, we were able to get this major league done. Yankees in 6 for me. I think you said Dodgers in
7.
7, 6 or 7. 7. We'll go with 7. So, yeah, and hopefully Otani comes to bat.
He better for all that money.
All the major stars, all the major
$500 million. He better.
come back. Yeah, this is the two more storied franchises. I think they're the two franchises which spent the most money. But it's going to come down to it, and we'll know in a few days who's going to, take home the coveted World Series trophy. All right, Dan, thank you again, and I'll see you tomorrow. And good night. I'll